Over the last few decades, I've been aware, in a slightly shadowy sense, of the work of Ambrose McEvoy. He was different from other artists. He looked rather startlingly unfinished. There was a feeling of colour and drama that was alien for a lot of orthodox painting at the period. And then really as a result of two chance encounters, we came across via a descendant of the family in a lockup in Canada a whole lot of his works, a great range of what he was capable of, including unfinished portraits, finished ones, members of the family. Looking further into his life, it was quite astonishing the impact and the range of portraits that he produced of the divine people, the society around him. He really was a prince amongst portrait painters. One then found his paintings in the basements of major museums, in the Tate, in the National Portrait Gallery, in far-flung parts of the British Isles. Suddenly we realized we had the potential here to bring this all together and create another opportunity, a stage for Ambrose McEvoy, the head-turning, late teens, early 20s portrait painter par excellence, to live again. I think we have now an exhibition of which I'm certainly inordinately proud, but I think genuinely progresses our understanding of the more luminescent, effervescent aspirations of late teens and 20s British and American society.
At the height of his career, Ambrose McEvoy's exuberant strokes brilliantly caught the mood of a high society hungry for new artistic expression. Portraits of such notable socialites as Diana Cooper, Lois Sturt, Daphne Baring were applauded not just for their sensitivity and temperament, but their striking contemporary qualities. In contrast to more conformist portraitists of the period, like Oswald Burley, McEvoy's non-finito technique had about it a whiff of danger. McEvoy's use of electric lighting to illuminate his sitters was startlingly contemporary. Abandoning natural daylight in favour of the artificial, it enabled him to work during the dark winter months in his London studio, when all other artists had retired for the day. His use of coloured bulbs became a trademark. The effervescence they admitted was integral to the subject's characterisation. The society beauty and hostess extraordinaire, Lady Diana Cooper, was painted by McEvoy in 1916. She was later to dub the work Call to Orgy. She is bathed in blue light and neon hues that shimmer across the drapery of her elegant dress and her face and her arms. The effect is just as dramatic today as it would have been to McEvoy's contemporaries. Operating in the highly competitive sphere of professional society portrait painting, Ambrose secured a reputation as a daring innovator. Claude Johnson, managing director of Rolls-Royce and later a firm friend and patron, saw it as nothing less than a revelation on his first encounter. He described it as something utterly new in painting and very beautiful. The rainbow was his colour box. Through his studio came all manner of public figures, from prime ministers such as Ramsay MacDonald to a young Winston Churchill. Also celebrities such as the dancer Lydia Lopakova and wild socialites, both British and American, including the most famous of them all, the Honourable Lois Sturt. His portraits and preparatory sketches of Sturt are amongst his best. Whether crystallised in loose watercolour strokes or built up in layers of blazing colour, McEvoy's Lois Sturt is the epitome of roaring 20s glamour. McEvoy made himself the portrait painter who, above any other, could express the zeitgeist of the period. Working at a furious speed and acting largely upon instinct, McEvoy would emerge behind the luminescent glow of electric-coloured lighting to strike the open canvas with his epoch-defining strokes.
Ambrose McEvoy was trying to achieve something more ambitiously than other portrait painters at the period were. He wanted to get a sense of the fleeting moment, the effervescence of society. He wasn't just interested in the features and the deportment of his subject. He wanted to crystallize that glamour, that fugitive glamour that was around at the time. And watercolor was a perfect way of doing this. The speed of the medium, the way it could be quickly mixed and washed, the way that it could be washed off and you could start again, and the paper that allowed him to scratch and play rather more freely, possibly, than canvas, I think is a very significant part of this. And these watercolors were standalone, significant works of art. They were Ambrose McEvoy's contribution to the great canon of portrait painting in early 20th century British art.
Today, words like abstract or expressionist or gestural are the only ones that seem to be able to describe Ambrose McEvoy's painting technique. Whereas his friend and Slade contemporary, for example, Augustus John, could be said to capture the character of his sitter through line, McEvoy seems to do it with a clatter of colour and stroke. McEvoy was famed for his depiction of women. In his obituary in the Times, he was praised for his ability to paint in a manner that was both visually appealing and yet profound. One of his students at the Slade noted his technique for women. The strokes of his brush, she recalls, fluttered down like snowflakes, leaving the foundation underneath to play its part in providing mass and substance. Gradually, the head emerged through its transparent covering of white and umber, vivid, soft yet precise, a shaft of light emerging from a cloud. Working under the impressionist influences of both Turner and Whistler, McEvoy developed other unusual working methods, such as holding his watercolours under a tap. This became the artist too, in a sense. The image that survived the running water took him closer to creating a dreamlike image, which he could then modify or enhance as required. At the time of his death, on the 4th of January 1927, Ambrose McEvoy was at the pinnacle of his career. Aged 49, he'd already established himself as the go-to alternative society portrait painter. The modern Gainsborough of his age, at the end of his life, McEvoy had more commissions scheduled in his diary than at any other point in his career. Suffering a weak disposition, a combination of overwork and stress, however, led to his early demise. Ambrose McEvoy's frantic brushwork and occasionally chaotic improvisations verge on the pure abstract. He was amongst the first portraitists of the 20th century to bridge that perilous gap between formal portrayal and the excitements of artistic self-expression.